Alright everyone, here is the moment you have been waiting for. My name is Gabe Jones, and on this today's special episode of Into Final Space, I am welcoming the Master Commander, the creator of Final Space, the voice of Gary Goodspeed, Mooncake, and Tribor, Olan Rogers. This is an incredible honor, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear this exclusive interview. Buckle up those butt cheeks and let's get right into it. Alright, so today I am welcoming the Olan Rogers to Into Final Space via Skype. Thank you so much for coming on today. How are you?
Doing good, buddy.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining me today.
Absolutely. Let's get into Final Space.
Alrighty. So first off, we of course know that you are the mastermind behind the whole operation. But can you just give us like a breakdown of what your overall job on Funnel Space entails?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I'm the creator, EP, writer. I also voice Gary Goodspeed, Mooncake, Tribor, Menendez, a slew of other various characters, and yeah, I mean, I'm there for every step of the way, and every side of the production. I'm there. I'm in it. I'm into Final Space.
Yeah. And of course we know a lot of the background that led up to Final Space. But can you just give us a bit of the crazy process of how it all went from Gary Space to the pilot to
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
incredibly mastery of television, and then afterwards, where did you get all that inspiration from?
Yeah. So it started out as a kind of like a little terribly made cartoon called Gary Space that I did on my YouTube back in like 2011. It was just done in After Effects. It was very terrible. Maybe one of the worst things I've ever made. I did 3 little episodes. But I don't know. I mean, the idea, the 2 characters were always there. It was Gary and Mooncake. And I remember I was like, man, I love animation so much. I grew up with Toonami, Dragon Ball Z, and Reboot, and I always watched cartoons. Transformers. The 1980s movie is still one of my favorite movies, and I was like, man, I really want to do some sort of animation. It'd be cool to reboot that thing in some fashion. And I remember at the time, Gary Space was like when I was thinking about rebooting it right before the pilot presentation. I wanted to call it Gary Space, and I remember somebody was like, "Man, you're just copying off Steven Universe," and I'm like, "No, I had the thingy first." But so I changed the name to Final Space, and I did the pilot presentation with Newform because at the time they were funding a lot of YouTubers and kind of online creators like passion projects, and I was like, man, it'd be awesome to pitch them something, even if it's live action or whatever. I pitched them 2 ideas. One was this book that me and Jake were writing called Heaven's Vault, and the other one was Final Space. And it was like I just sent them some art that I had made, and they ended up saying, well, yeah, let's do this Final Space one, because I think it was cheaper, and I don't think Newform had ever done animation before.
Yeah.
And they gave me the absolute least amount of money out of the bunch. I'm serious. Like all the other guys, I think they got like $20,000 to $30,000 to make their passion project. They gave me 15, and I threw every cent at the screen. I didn't get paid $1. I was like, throw it because it was like that's all we had, and.
Yeah.
Their projects were like 20 minutes long, and mine was 6. That was all the animation I could get, 6 minutes, and it was stretching it. And so I had to be very strategic about what was actually moving in that short. So I had to come up with a story that basically involved not a lot of moving, and really pushed the dollars that I had to the maximum. And thankfully, Studio Joho took that and just ran with it, and you could tell that they were pretty passionate about it. And I remember I in the script I put like all the shots that I wanted, like a dolly. I was like dolly in on Gary as he's sitting there holding avocado, and I sent him like a playlist of all the music that I wanted, and I think he was starting to get the idea very, very quickly that we wanted something cinematic. And I think the point from there is we uploaded it to YouTube. I think their plan was to upload it at like 5 a.m., which was like the dumbest time to upload anything. If
Yep.
you've been on YouTube, it's like you'd never upload any. Nobody's up at 5 a.m. And I was like, man, I spent 5 months on this. Nobody's going to watch this thing. And sure enough, I put it up at 5 a.m. and it blew up. And still to this day, probably one of my most viewed and most liked videos and most commented videos was that video. And I wish I would have figured that out, a decade ago, because man, I wish if I knew that I could crack into the industry doing that thing, I would have done it much, much sooner. But yeah, I think it was a fun passion project that when people kind of saw it, they could tell that I was passionate about it. And immediately, like the day after, I got an email from Adult Swim, funny enough, and Conoco and Lionsgate. And I knew right then, man, this is life changing. This could be a life changing event, right there. And it's kind of the moment that I was hoping for over a decade. Like that somebody would just see me. And
Yeah.
I mean, I've done a lot of stuff. You can look at some stuff that I was self-taught. Did a lot of stuff like a video series like Pop Rocket, Last Scene, New Prime, and I tried so hard to break into that live action field, and nobody saw me. And it just took this little fun cartoon to do it. But yeah, from there it was just I met up with Conoco, and essentially they came on board as a producing partner, and we took out pitches, and bidding war ensued, and Final Space ended up at TBS. And the inspiration behind it was just all the stuff that I kind of grew up with, Star Wars, Star Trek, and but the animation wise, I mean, if you look at the 1980s Transformers the movie, that is it has so much of the DNA of Final Space, because they did some ballsy things in that movie. With like killing off Optimus Prime, and you're like, what? You killed off Optimus Prime. And the soundtrack was like AC/DC, like it was like the most amazing soundtrack to any movie, and the animation was just mind blowing. I think Orson Welles did a voice in it. It was like they just did some crazy stuff in it. But if you look at that, you can definitely see like the DNA of like where I got a lot of inspiration for Final Space.
Yeah, awesome. All right. So what was kind of your vision in making Final Space? And you talk about those inspirations and the passion behind it. But what was your end goal and your, what were you trying to make out of it?
Yeah, I mean, I've watched animation a long, long time. I mean, early Toonami. I mean, I've seen all Family Guy, South Park, American Dad. I've seen it all. I've watched anime. I've watched pretty much everything that I could watch. I watch in animation, because it's just it's such an imaginative medium.
Yeah.
Like there's so much stuff you could do with animation that you just can't do in live action, and that's always been fascinating. And one of the things that sparked my love for kind of getting into stories was Toy Story. Funny enough, I snuck out of my house to go see Toy Story like 3 times. And I was just like a kid at the time. So it's like, it was just something that really fascinated me. And yeah, I think the thing that I wanted to do with it was I just hated how a lot of the adult animation was always just kind of focusing in on comedy.
Yeah.
And once I saw Toy Story, and I realized, holy crap, there's other brushes that can paint with different emotions. Like it's not just comedy, raunchy comedy. Because it was at the time, Simpsons. I remember sneaking and watching that all the time, and that was revolutionary for its time. Even Family Guy, early Family Guy. I still remember one of the best jokes on TV is Peter Griffin. Is when he gets asked, like, what's your name? And he's looking around and he sees like a fountain peeing. And he's like, pee. And then he sees somebody crying, tear. And then he sees just a friggin' Griffin. And he's like, Peter Griffin. He's like, no. It's like, it's one of the funniest jokes. and they've all kind of, even South Park, like they do so good at what they do. But they don't really pull out the other brushes and paint with those. And I think that's what fascinated me with trying to do animation is like, man, I just really love, what Pixar was doing. And that was one of the things we pitched is like, we want to make a show that's very Pixar, that's hitting with all those different emotions. And I think that was always the goal. And whether or not we accomplished it season one, I hope we did, but I think that we really accomplished it season two. And if we get another season, I think it's only going to get more and more intense and dark and cool and stuff. So hopefully we'll see. But that was always the idea.
Yeah, yeah, and I know whenever I'm trying to pitch to people who haven't heard of it before, I'm always like, it's an adult comedy cartoon, but it's not your usual adult comedy cartoon.
Yeah.
It's got so much more substance, so many more layers and levels to it that kind of build
Yeah.
this action adventure with some heart and really great storyline, super cinematic.
And there's definitely shows out there that are like that,
Yeah.
like you look at Gravity Falls, and even Rick and Morty kind of dabbles in that. And I think Over the Garden Wall is a great one. And even Adventure Time, really kind of taps into that. And I think those are to me, the more interesting cartoons.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that I keep going back to because I'm like, man, there's something just has depth, like there's layers to it. And that's the goal, is to have something that just has a lot of layers to it. And it's hard to describe Final Space to people because they like just painting with the one brush, which is like Futurama or Rick and Morty copycat or, whatever it is. But whenever they give it a chance, they're like, oh, wow, I didn't expect that. That's the thing that they always say. I didn't expect that to be what it was.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So next question. What is it like not only to be the show creator and working to make sure everything's meeting expectations, but also to be voicing characters in the show? And how has your previous projects and everything with YouTube helped you get to this position in voice acting?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that hits the mind right now is just exhausting. I'm exhausted, man. Like it's been a long season 2 and in season 1. I mean, we didn't stop. We just kind of were like, we got picked up for season 2 while we were finishing season 1. So we were just grinding through. We've been working nonstop for like 3 years now. And I think the big thing right now is with managing all the social media stuff and editing all these trailers and these videos and kind of like still going to mixes and voice records and doing write-up and all this other stuff that goes into making a show. It's exhausting for sure. That's the thing that hits my mind right now, but right behind that is fun because it's just exactly what I want to do. So it's like it's exhausting fun,
Yeah.
In any time that I feel like, man, that's I'm tired. I just need to sit there, and then I just realize, you know what, this is exactly what I want. So I don't know what else would I rather get exhausted at, but it's definitely this. So it's like it's hard to explain.
Absolutely. So what was it like, with this first season, just starting a brand new show from scratch, and what were the things that you had to learn and become accustomed to?
Yeah, I mean that was an unusual time. I mean, right from the get-go, selling the actual thing, I felt like an imposter because it was like, who am I? I mean, like I'm so used to bad things happening to me that I was like, this is like the one good thing in a long time that's happened to me, like a win. And I was like, man, this sucks. Like it's like I feel like I don't deserve this. And then shortly after that, I realized, like, well, I got to show people that I am worthy of this.
Right.
And so I just worked so hard. I mean, I remember there'd be times I'd go in, 8 in the morning and walk out of there 2, 3 a.m., in the writing of it. It was like, and I remember we were writing on, near Christmas and Christmas Eve, like 2 a.m. You know, I didn't fly back to Nashville until Christmas Day. Like it was nuts, man. It was like we were trying everything to make sure that this was like a good show. And I think once we started getting closer to the premiere of it, that pressure, man, it sneaks up on you. Because then you see everybody like what their first thoughts are. And everybody's first thought was, you know, this is just a copycat of Rick and Morty. And there's no way to combat that, you know? And I would even go on there and I would say, hey, just check it out. You know, it's okay to like multiple things. That is a thing. You know, it's not just like one cartoon show. That's all you're allowed to like. It's like you're allowed to love and watch many different things. I watch every cartoon show known to man, and I don't think they're competing with each other. But so that started to pop up, and then you just kind of feel like, who knows what they're gonna think, you know? And I think once it actually aired and we got like our first review, and the first review was a Hollywood Reporter, and I still remember it. I framed it. It's one of the funniest things I've ever read. He just said that it was going to float off into space and couldn't find one single good thing to say about the show. I'm talking the animation, the music. I mean, all the voice actors we had, exclude me, but like there are some good voice actors on there. I mean, he couldn't find one good thing about it. He just jumped on it, and I just cracked up at that. And I think that almost in a weird way helped me just realize that, you know what, not everybody's gonna like this, and there's nothing you can do to prevent that. Because it was weird. Like having a terrible review like that was like the best thing that could have happened to me. Just for mentally, just going down the road. Because even if everybody loved it, I would be kind of like in a state of mind where it's like, holy crap, I have more pressure. You know, there's more pressure there. But it was good to see that first review. And I mean, obviously you want everybody to love it, but then we started to get some good ones, you know, that people that actually watched it just got to even watch it. And so we started to get some good ones, and then I realized, okay, you know what? People that are actually giving this a chance are digging it. And then I realized, okay, I feel good. I started to really kind of feel like I was in a good spot. Obviously, there's nothing probably the most stressful time, though, was like the actual premiere of the show. Like the entire run of the show was just because I mean, even if you pick up a show, the thing that you don't really like think about at all, it's like the number. You got to get a good number, you know, like the Nelson's rating number. I don't know anything about that. And I guess we didn't do like So Hot on TBS. We did okay, but then we did end up doing a lot better in Adult Swim, which I guess is why we did the old switcheroo there. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different emotions. You can't predict it, man. It's just a very pressuring job for sure, and very stressful. Very stressful.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you.
You should start a show, Gabe. Start it right now.
Let me get on
Enjoy the stressfulness of this.
Yeah. All right. So next up, what has it been like to work along some of these amazing actors, artists, directors, and producers? We've seen you post all your crazy stuff with, you know, voice acting with some of the legends that you love, and of course some of your best friends. So can you just tell us a little bit about how that's been?
Yeah. I mean, season 1, we got some great actors involved, and that was such a big asset to, I think, the show, because I don't know how many people would have watched it if we didn't get like such a stellar cast, you know, like David Tennant, Fred Armisen, Ron Perlman, Keith David, Tika, and you know, forget me and Coty, we're a bunch of nobodies, but like they brought the people, you know. And I think it's every time that I get to record with them, it's so cool to see them slowly kind of find their character. Because I feel like season 1, and in season 1 with every show, you don't really get enough time to actually find the character, because you're in the booth for like an hour.
Yeah.
And in that hour, you could actually record 4 episodes, you know? So we're just blazing through records. And they'll come in and do pickups and stuff and ADR, but like that first season, everybody was just like really kind of getting used to the show, getting used to the characters. And it's just cool to see in season 2, like when you get in the booth, that they just know their character. They just hop in. Like I remember when Fred first popped in the booth, it was kind of a moment where it's like, man, I don't know if he knows what this character is yet. And every time he hopped in the booth, he started to really, really find it, to where season 2, he hopped in and it was like amazing. He knew the character. He was funnier than ever. So it was just kind of, it's really interesting to see that process in voice acting, because I voiced, essentially season 1 and season 2. That's it. That's my experience in voice acting, and nobody really taught me. I just kind of got thrown into it, and that first season, I learned a ton, and I know Coty learned a ton, just kind of with him kind of doing that first season, and him trying to find other jobs, because he's out. Me and him are trying to get other voice acting gigs, and he's out trying to get another job because I killed the man off. I feel so bad, but yeah,
One of the boldest moves in animation.
Yeah, and I just did an audition today, and he got really close on this one audition for a Netflix show, and I was rooting for him, man. I was like, come on, Coty, please, and he missed out. He didn't get it, but it's like he's going to get something, and yeah, I mean it's awesome to work with all these people. At the end of the day, they're all great, and they're all so talented, and I've learned so much. And yeah, I mean that's about all I have on that.
All right. So, of course, we have a season 2 now. So what has it been like to see the fanfare that has continued to build up around the show?
It's pretty crazy, because I think when we aired in the U.S., it was kind of an interesting thing where it had a little bit of a base kind of brewing, like you're kind of starting a fire, and you got like sparks a little bit. But then when it went on the international Netflix, it was like a napalm bomb.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
exploded.
Yeah.
And I didn't really expect that at all. Like I was like, okay, whatever, international Netflix. I have no idea what's going to happen with that. Hopefully it's good, And I remember, like, out of nowhere, things just started to really blow up. Like, it became a thing overseas, which is like kind of absurd that your show is more popular overseas than in the United States. And you're like, okay, cool. And I guess the reason why, and I was trying to analyze that, it's like, and something that I didn't want to do with Final Space is I don't really write very pop culture-y jokes, like jokes that are almost like Family Guy. Family Guy is very topical. Like they write jokes about actors or whatever, like that's happening in the moment. Even South Park. But the thing with Final Space, since it's its own universe, like much like Star Wars or even like the Avengers, there is nothing for them to kind of like scratch their head at. It's a very easy thing for them to watch and dub and basically be like, yeah, this is just a space adventure, with situational comedy. So I think that's why I did so well over there. But it's been surreal to kind of see, people get tattoos. I feel like that's when you have something.
There's been some really good ones out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Once people start inking your characters on their body, that's when you got that's something that in the works. And I say that because it's like there are some cartoon shows out there that don't have a fandom like that. To go to those lengths, to cosplay, to get a tattoo, to start a podcast, like there people. It takes a lot for that to happen, to make that jump. And so I think it's cool to see, and hopefully with season 2 everybody digs it and it keeps growing, because that would be great, because there's more story to be told. But it's been great. It's been awesome to see, man.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. All right. So what did you learn from the first season that you have been able to use to make this second season even better?
Yeah, I mean that's like that was such a good learning experience for me in particular, because it's like I'm not from TV. I have no TV experience. And the funny thing is, you don't really get TV experience unless you do TV to get TV experience, because there is no class for it. You know, like you can
Right.
go to school for it, but you still don't actually know what the heck you're doing until you actually work on a show.
Yeah.
And so I kind of got thrown into it, and luckily I had David Sachs, who's like he's the best. Like he really is one of the greatest guys. I learned so much from this guy, and I think with me and him, it's like, especially in the writing process. Like I remember when the first batch of writers we got, I knew what the show was, and I had to explain what this show was to them. And I tried, man. I bought like movies like Sunshine and Moon and Interstellar, and the new Star Trek stuff, and I was like, watch this. This is what I want it to be like. And what the scripts that would come back would always be like very Futurama, very Rick and Morty, and that's because that's the hot thing in Hollywood. A lot of Hollywood writers kind of write the same in a weird way. Not really identical, but they write the same because it's like that's the hot thing right now, and they've come off of these shows. So when a lot of these, like we had one Rick and Morty writer, and we had other writers from I think like People of Earth and stuff, and they were great. They were all great writers. I'm telling you, like, they're all great writers. But it was hard for them to like adapt to what this was because it was such a new thing. And so season one was trying to really kind of work with other people and try to explain what this show was to them. And I'm telling you, I tried my best, man. I tried, and it's so hard to do that. And I tried. And I think for what the task was, I look at that season and I think, I don't think I could have done in that present moment in time. This is how I always view things. If I've done something, and in that moment, in that time, if I couldn't do a better job than what I did, then I'm proud of it. And I'm immensely proud of that season, because I don't think at that present moment in time, with no experience, with no real kind of idea of how to explain this stuff and really kind of work with people, and knowing nobody in LA, it was like that was the best that I could do.
Yeah.
And so I think with season two, a lot of these people, came from season one, so they had that experience with the show, which was huge. It was huge. Another thing that was really, really good is that me and David really kind of knew what this show was at that point. And I know there's moments where, that we'll be so like in link with each other in the writing process that it's like, this is great. Like we got faster at writing scripts season two because we knew what the show was. And even though like we've had a lot of writers on this season, just kind of like, doing a lot of punch up. And that's I think that's the strategy that I want to do going forward, is like have me and David write the stories. In a lot of these jokes, there are jokes but there's a lot of punch up jokes from other writers. It's like, just write the stories, send that to a bunch of punch up writers to make it as funny as possible. And I think that's the winning formula, because that's kind of what we did this season is we kind of really tapped into those scripts, and I think the stories are working. I think it's a lot funnier. So I think the writing process, we figured it out. I think also in the directing side, we had one of the directors actually come from season one, who was our supervising director this season, Ben Bajilajek.
Yeah.
And just coming off of a season of the show, it's amazing how much of a difference that did in even his directing of episodes. Like, he did such a freaking fantastic job this season. And there'd be times I'd walk in and I'd watch an animatic and be like, I have not one note. This is like great. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's because he's passionate about it. Everybody's really passionate, I think, about the show. At least I hope so. And the artist, I mean, Devo is such a fantastic art director.
Incredible person.
Yeah, he really did something really awesome, and we were kind of tasked with the idea of like, because a lot of people, I guess, thought the art style for season 1 was kind of like on the borderline between adult and child animation. Not child, kids animation. Hold on, there's a helicopter. Get to the chopper! So that was kind of like something that we were kind of tasked with this season, and he really wanted to kind of make this stand out in a bigger way. And one thing that I was like, hey, is there any way? I remember the conversation because we would meet with TBS, and I'd come back and we're designing new characters and ship stuff, and I remember the thing with Gary's hair. It's like, is there a way to just add more hair to him? And he was like, yeah, we can do that. It's like he would just take it and just run with it. And you really see that the art this season is just bonkers.
Oh, absolutely.
Him and his artist. Thank you so much.
They did.
That's all. They get all the credit. I didn't do any of the art. I would essentially say, kind of tell him, that I want it darker or to be scarier or funnier or this or that. I would kind of give like pointers and stuff, but I would just let them kind of do the art. And that's kind of like how I like managing things, is like you let the artist do the art and I'll just worry about the story, but they did a fantastic job. So season 1 to season 2, we just learned so much.
Yeah, and I mean, talking to him and the other artists I've talked to, and the producers and directors, and they've all just been. They all say that they love season 1, but they're super excited because they took so much from season 1 and just ran with it for season 2. And talking to Devo specifically, he was super excited just for the different color schemes that he had and the really detailed backgrounds that they've been working on. And last season, that's what I think Final Space became known for, was that cinematic feel to it, and this season looks even better.
It's a lot. I think it's more cinematic this season. I think the thing with him is he gets really excited about stuff. You know when he's excited about it.
Absolutely.
He won't stop talking. He will talk about it till the moon comes home. And it's like the moment you're there, it's like, dude, Devo, let's do it. Like I can tell when he's passionate about something, and that gets me excited because he's passionate. And then when Ben is on something, like I did something very, very particular in this season, and there's no real spoilers with this, but I remember talking to them pretty early in the writing process, and they both had a couple things that they really loved, like when they grew up, like stuff that, so like one of them, Devo loves Dino Riders, loves them. I mean, he loves the show. He wants to reboot it. It's like one of his favorite shows.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, man, you know what? I'm gonna make some sort of Dino Rider in season 2. And the moment I remember I wrote it in the script, I showed it to him. He like flipped out, and he was like, he drew so many dang Dino kind of esque rider things, and it's great. You can tell like with that, like we're good friends, and I love doing that because it's like I know that he's getting to do something in a weird way that he's always wanted to do. Yeah. And it's like that's just the icing on the cake, And with Ben, he told me about this one Cowboy Bebop episode called "Toys in the Attic," and he described it to me, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make you something like that. And when I showed him the script, he was like, I can't believe I get to do this. It's like, so it's like, that's the kind of stuff like it's, you get those guys passionate about something and they're just going to turn in fantastic work. And they're just amazing artists. And pretty much everybody on the show has been fantastic to work with. So it's like season 2 has been just a joy to work with those guys.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. So of course, we've all seen you're working on some more stuff outside of Final Space. So what do your future projects look like right now?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the weird thing about shows in Hollywood and that you don't really know or expect. I'm used to just working like a job, and you just have that job from now until whenever you decide to turn in your 2 weeks. And I've done YouTube, and I've done I've worked at an airline fabricating place. Like I sanded like airplane antennas for 5 years through college. So I've had real jobs, Sunglass Hut and the movie theater. And so I'm used to that stuff. And in Hollywood, it's like, it isn't like that. It's like, essentially, once you're done with a season, you're just done. You got to find new work.
Right.
And so season 2 is about to kind of like wrap up in September. That's when we turn in the last episode, essentially.
Yeah.
And so like my thought process was like, I don't know. I can't bank on a season 3. I think it's going to get a season 3. There's so many people that love the show at TBS and Adult Swim. And I mean, one of the dang TBS executives got a tattoo of Tribor on his leg. It's like, it's hard to think like this show is going to not have a season 3, but a lot of it depends on that number. A lot of it is stuff that I've learned from my dad, which is, you always plan for the worst case scenario. And so I got to plan for the worst case scenario if there is no season 3. But I think it's going to get a season 3. But if it doesn't, let's say the off chance worst case scenario, there's no season 3. We're getting ready to pitch a show called The Lions Blaze. There's a little presentation on my YouTube on it, and it's a lot different than that. Same kind of story, but it's like it's really, really cool. It's the same people on Final Space, so it's Konako and David Sachs.
Yeah. And
we're getting ready to pitch that. They're setting the meetings right now, kind of after 4th of July week. So we're going to go out with that thing. There's this really cool project that I've been kind of working on, hopefully to write as a feature. I've been working on that thing for like over a year. It's hard, man. Like at Hollywood, it's like you could work on something for over a year, not really get paid for it, in the hopes that you pitch it to get the job,
Right.
That's kind of what I'm doing. It's getting ready to pitch a lot of stuff. So hopefully something takes off. I mean, hopefully they all take off. That'd be awesome. Just to keep things going on. But I think if you like Final Space, you're gonna love Lions Blaze. So it's that same kind of big world, cool ideas, dramatic action comedy. It's really nuts. It's gonna be cool.
Cool. Awesome. All right. And last question for me before we get into Fantrexians Respond. So, of course, without spoilers, what can we, I guess, overarchingly expect from the second season of Final Space?
Yeah, I mean, the second season of Final Space, I'll say this. Like, there's one thing that I didn't want this show to kind of fall victim to, which is just kind of like, there's 2 shows that I really like, but every single time that I see a new season come out, they say these 2 things about these shows, which This Is Us and BoJack. And they say the one line that I just like, I don't want the second season to be this, which is grab your tissues, like it's time to cry for an hour. I don't want that. I don't want something where the show becomes predictable, where you're going into it expecting to be sad or expecting this. And I think there are some very big heartbreaking things this season, but I think more than that, this season is a lot of fun. And that's kind of what I wanted this season to be, is something where you're like, man, I want you to look back at when you watch all 13 episodes and say, that was an adventure. That was fun. Wow. Like those are the feelings I want you to have. And like, it's dark, there's a lot of dramatic stuff, and I think it's firing on all cylinders. But I think that's ultimately what I'm hoping, is that people just say, man, that was a blast. It was funny and it was cool, but it was fun.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we are going to take a pause and be back with Fantrexians Respond in just a minute. All right, folks, we'll be back in just a moment. What's up, guys? Gabe Jones here on Into Final Space, taking a moment just to announce that I will be at the Nashville Season 2 premiere event party on Saturday, June 22nd. Really stoked to see y'all there. Really excited to hang out with you guys and talk some about Final Space and hear your thoughts on the podcast. I'll also be joining with Star Cadet and the Soda Parlor to bring you some exclusive content straight from the party. So make sure you're tuning in and always listen to the podcast, keeping up on Discord, Reddit, and of course Instagram and Twitter. Until then, let's get back into this awesome interview with Olan Rogers. All right, so we are back with a few questions from your Fantrexians out there. So first of all, from Josh on Discord, what from Final Space would you like to see turned into a Lego set?
Oh man, Mr. Galang. I would say, just a ship. The Crimson Light would be awesome. Just a whole Lego set would be killer. That would. Then you've made it when you get a Lego set. That's what you know.
That's the other staple. Yeah. All right. So next from Finn on Discord, what were your inspirations in creating shows like Final Space and hopefully very soon Lions Plays? Can you talk a little bit about Final Space if you want to talk some on Lions Plays as well?
Yeah, I think if you've listened to the podcast, that is essentially like it was a lot of movies out there, but the animated Transformers movie, the 1980s one, Interstellar, Moon, Sunshine was a huge one. I just love the soundtrack on that so much. We use that for a lot of the temp music in making the episodes. I don't know. It's a lot of that. And I think for Lions Blaze, it's been a lot of like Amblin, very Spielberg, like early Spielberg kind of stuff. And I think that's pretty much it.
Alrighty. Next we got Fudge Stuff. Will there be any more touching or heartbreaking songs this upcoming season?
Oh yeah, totally. 100%.
All right. Blaze then asked, without spoilers, of course, can you give a little bit of how much of Gary's past we'll get to see this season?
I think you'll get to see a good bit of it. I there's always more to tell, I think, but there's a good chunk that you're going to find out. I think this season. But yeah, there's still more to tell. So it's like it's can't give it all away.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, this season you'll definitely see a good bit of it. So yeah.
All right. So another great one from Discord with Starbits. Are there any new morals or themes? We had a lot of that we could relate to in season 1 that we can relate to in season 2 as viewers.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of in season 1, a lot of loneliness, and I think season 2. There's a little bit of that there, but it's also just kind of like, just a lot of people coming into their own, like taking the worst parts of your past and making the best of it, and kind of getting back up and facing the challenges that you got ahead of you, even though that you friggin' failed, So I think it's a lot of overcoming. It's a lot of banding together, and you'll definitely see it in this, where it's he's got like people around him that really care about him, So that's I think that's a really cool thing to do. If you get the right people in place around you, you can accomplish wonders.
Yeah, awesome. All right, another question from Discord's own Verdute. One of his favorite things was the inclusiveness and the diversity of the show. Was the inclusiveness of different characters of different colors and creeds kind of strived for when you were creating the show?
Wait, say that again?
Was the inclusiveness of different characters of different colors and creeds kind of strived for when you were creating the show?
Yeah, I think it's the cool thing doing with a sci-fi show is that you can make things as colorful as you want, and that's something that Devo really wanted to do was use a lot of different colors, and we wanted it to be. I remember I met with him. I was like, I want this to be the prettiest show you've seen on TV, and he took that and ran with it. And he loves like a lot of neon colors. Like if you look at his art, like he just those are his go-tos. And so I think it's cool to use more than just the standard real life colors. Like it's
Right.
with Ash, like her hair is like this blazing pink, and it's just really interesting and unique to look at it. But I think it's always, I've always said that I want the show as colorful on screen as off screen. So it's like a lot of the cast, like I try to make sure that is as inclusive as possible. It's a very diverse cast if you really look at it all together. There's still too many white guys, but there's like, you can't do much about that. Like, I'm a white guy, I can't do anything about it. But there's so many people on the show, like Ron Funches. I mean, that voices Fox. Like, that could have went to anybody. But I was like, man, I really want Ron Funches, and he got that role because he's freaking hysterical. And I didn't just pick him because he's a person of color. Forget that. I watch Ron Funches' comedy special, and like, this guy, we even pitched him in the room, like, we want this guy. Imagine this voice coming out of this character. And I remember when we pitched it and we're going to the casting, like, who should we get for it? And it's like, I don't think Ron would do this. And he did it. Like, it was an instant yes. And I think it's, when you see it like that, there's a lot of people, I mean, in Hollywood and in animation in general, where they don't go for, the colorful cast. I think even like, I don't want to call anybody out, but there's a lot of shows that just cast just straight white people. And it's like, man, it's like, there's so many more people than that, and unique voices and stuff. And I think if I have my way, like, it's only kind of from here just to keep making the cast more diverse and colorful and different. And that's the cool thing about Lions Blaze, is we want that to be a world, like a global show.
Yeah.
So like, and much like how Lost did it, with that very diverse cast that's like from all over the world. That's how we want Lions Blaze to be. So it's like, there's of course a white guy. There's always got to be a white guy in there, but it's like the whole other cast. Like, there's African American, there's Chinese, there's Indian, like, and we want to cast actual people from those countries, because I think that would be a really colorful thing that I haven't seen in animation.
Right.
Is to really make it diverse, and you hear those accents, and you hear, it's like, it's just going to make it more interesting. And I think that's always been the goal with the shows, is to try to do something that is colorful. And whether or not I'm succeeding at it, I don't know, but we're trying. It's like, we're freaking trying our hardest.
Right. All right. And so our last Fantrexian question comes from Matster270. Which outfit does Gary enjoy wearing the most, his spacesuit or his civilian clothes?
I think it's civilian clothes. His spacesuit was a prisoner outfit, so I don't. I think it's civilian clothes for sure.
Right. All right. Cool. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today and answering these questions. And we can, of course, not wait for the second season of Final Space, which is coming on Adult Swim, June 24th at 11:30. And just thank you again so much.
Cool. Thanks so much, man.
What an epic interview. Huge thanks to Olan Rogers for joining me on the show today. Look out for him this season on Final Space, coming to Adult Swim. We've got more interviews coming up. As promised, the animation team from Jamfield will be on the show. As always, remember to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Into Final Space, and always submit your questions for interviews via Reddit and Discord. Thanks, guys, and I'll see you next time on Into Final Space.